Pete Conley. I'm head of IP banking at Boustead. We're a global middle market bank. I've spent over 30 years in investment banking, equity research, equity capital markets. More than half that time, I've been working in IP intelligence, equity research, and IP banking. That exposure to the capital markets is really sort of the perspective I want to take on this webinar, elements to it. First thing we want to talk about here, thought about what should we call this webinar. We really thought there were three concepts here. The first is this concept of hidden value. And then the second concept is how do you unlock the hidden value? And then what are the innovative ways to do this? And as Brian talked about, Aon's doing some very cutting edge, leading the industry ways to unlock value. But I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about what is hidden when we talk about IP. And from a capital markets perspective, the first thing is it's a very opaque topic in terms of financial disclosure in SEC documents. So here we have an excerpt out of Apple's 2019 10K. They have three very generic paragraphs. You would never know Apple had anything of value with respect to IP if you just looked at their disclosures. And if you look at their balance sheet under GAAP accounting, this is another interesting example of repositioning in the value chain for multiple expansion. This company was Duratec, and Duratec was in the nuclear waste disposal business, which is a pretty crummy business to be in. With a half-life of 50,000 years, no one wants nuclear waste in their backyard. And so this was really, again, you can see from the multiples in 2002, it was trading at 0.6 times sales, EBITDA 4.6, again, unloved and ignored. Now, the interesting thing about this company was it was heavily owned by two investors. So the first was a activist corporate raider, Harold Simmons, owned 17%. And then the other was the Carlyle Group that owned 25%. So in the white box, you can see sort of the white dotted line. That's the baseline, effectively, for the stock price of Duratec. And what you see in the white box was the stock could not get above $10. The reason being, Harold Simmons was in the market. He spent 8 months trying to sell his 17% position when he decided he didn't want to be in the nuclear waste business anymore. So he was selling the stock through Cantor Fitzgerald and Jefferies, and every day they'd just sort of sit there and feed the stock out for 8 months. Again, in looking at the patents, looking at the citation activity, we began to see that this was more than just a nuclear waste company. They actually had the technology at the time to extract rare earth elements from the nuclear waste. So all of a sudden, one man's junk is now trace elements. So here was a company that sort of transcended just nuclear waste disposal. They are now extracting high-value rare earth elements from the nuclear waste. And instead of being owned just by industrial funds, this was now tech play. So, I was able to go to Harold Simmons and basically take him out of the balance of his stock, which removed the overhang. So the stock really created a whole new trading range as a technology company. In the green box here, again, looking at sort of the citation activity going on with Duratec, we began to notice that companies in the healthcare value chain were now citing Duratec, which was a bit of a head scratcher. What are they doing with a nuclear waste company? Well, as it turned out, the use case for Duratec was they're able to extract various radioisotopes like actinium-225, which at that time does not occur naturally. It had to be synthesized. It was only available in small quantities from Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Well, it turned out Duratec could now extract this material from nuclear waste, which really changed the game. And so helped Carlyle exit their position. That whole last green, those were healthcare funds now buying Duratec, and they effectively took Carlyle out of the balance of their position at a 10-year high from the table expansion going on.
Yeah, Pete, this is a great example of what I was saying before, and this is a great use case because you're looking at the overall opportunity that the IP presents. In this case, they're focused on one specific use case, and like you said, on nuclear medicine, but there's a whole different spectrum that through the analysis of what the patent claims cover in the portfolio, it can go to all different use cases, and that's the whole opportunity that the IP presents. Shouldn't be narrowly focused on one particular area. You have to look at the broader picture. In this case, it's a huge multiple that the company gets from looking at the broader spectrum. So it's a great example of power of IP.